we can definitely get started. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you being uh, in our space and just wanting to learn from us and the communities that we work with. It's very exciting to see um, the audience when they do join us at these sessions, and just I'm excited to learn more about all of you. My name is Christian Alvarado. I'm the manager of peer learning for the Children in Nature Network. I'm also the lead for our Action Challenge initiative as well, and I'll talk a little bit about that later in our event. We'll be joined shortly by our speakers, Jenny Swans and Megan Granado, who are part of our Nature Everywhere communities. And I'm glad you're here with us today, and just welcome to our Understand Your Community's Resources Through a Landscape Scan event. This event is really in support of our Nature Everywhere Communities Action Challenge, an initiative that is helping us increase equitable access to nature in 100 US communities by 2025. As a reminder, this event is being recorded. So please, if you would like to not be recorded, just make sure that you're on mute, your camera is off, at least until the Q&A. And we also have closed captioning that is available. And chat is also enabled for anyone to join us in the chat to comment, introduce themselves, and you can type your questions in the chat during the session, and we'll also be answering any questions throughout. So you don't feel like you have to wait to the Q&A space. If there's something that's coming up, you're like, man, I really wish they could clarify that or answer anything for us. And if we have some time, we can definitely answer that during the session. All right. If we could move to the next slide. I do want to start by respectfully acknowledging that I'm joining you all today from the unceded land of the Tungssis, Quinnipiac, and Wapingur peoples, who've stewarded this land throughout the generations. We invite you to share the indigenous land history of your location in the chat. And if you're not familiar with the history of your location, you can learn about indigenous territories and land with Native Land Map at native-land.ca. Additionally, to land acknowledgements, there are other ways that you can, support Indigenous people every day. There's learn about whose Indigenous homelands you're on, like we're talking about right now. You can educate yourself on Indigenous issues, amplify Indigenous social media accounts to reshare and amplify Indigenous voices year round, and of course, support Indigenous causes and businesses. I'm seeing a few people share themselves in the chat. Jane is joining us from Vancouver. Um, it looks like the Lower Columbia Nature Network. Devin as well. I'm seeing Brooke. I'm seeing Kelly. Thank you all for being in the chat and sharing where you're joining us from and engaging. All right, we can move forward in the chat or in the slides. Some of you are already doing this, but would love to see your name, pronouns, location, and one prompt that I'd love to learn more about you all. What is a recent accomplishment in connecting children to nature that you're most proud of? We're at the end of the year. We're thinking about what we've done in 2024. Some people start doing those like New Year's resolutions and thinking about 2025. What can I do better next year? But I'd love to hear something that you've done recently or even in the last few months that you're just like really excited that you put together something to support connecting more children to nature. Did you host an event? Did you bring out your family or students in your schools on a hike? Did you do something out in nature with children that you'd love to share with us? Love seeing the everyone coming in. Seeing Jenny, Cynthia, Susan, thank you so much. All right. So keep that in mind. We're gonna move on in a second, but if there's anything that you're really excited that you did this year in nature with children or your family, students in the area, let us know. All right. I'm seeing Jane share that You're hosting a year-long educator teacher training series for the Take Learning Outside. And you just hosted session 3 of 9. That's awesome to hear. Thank you for sharing that, Jane. All right, we can move forward on the slides. So we're we're in the middle of our welcome and introductions. I'm going to briefly talk to you about conducting a landscape scan. What does that mean? What is it about? Kind of what areas you should be looking for. Um, we'll also have some great time with our guest speakers. They'll talk about their approach to landscape scans. And then we also have some time to answer some questions. See if you'd like to dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that our speakers have shared, or even myself on landscape scanning. And then we'll wrap it up. If you're thinking about doing landscape scanning in your community, we're going to talk about the Action Challenge and how the Children Nature Network can recognize you for that, because we know that there are communities that are doing tremendous work, and they need to be celebrated and they need to be recognized. So we'll talk about that as well, and then end it with a quick survey, um, and send you on for the rest of the day here. We're gonna end at 5 o'clock here Eastern. So that's like the end of day for us, but I know everybody's in different time zones. But we'll definitely be talking about a lot today, and I look forward to sharing that with you. All right, in the chat, just before we move on, nature programming aims to reach LGBTQIA2S plus youth, and we were able to lead several summer forest bathing programs for them. Thank you so much for sharing that, Kelly. Brookshares is working with schools to make a child-friendly map of our town that includes nature and free places. Awesome, awesome. Architecture focuses on children's spaces with a mission to emotionally connect children to nature and spark their imagination. Thank you, Malda, for sharing that. Also seeing that Jared from Iowa saying that they're jazzed about building an early childhood nature connection strategy for the next 11 months. Also, my 3 and 5-year-old are loving headlamp night hikes this winter. That sounds so cool. I love that. I love the idea of that exploring. It's giving me a visual. So thank you for sharing that. All right. So let's talk about conducting a landscape scan. So, this is a process, to really map your community's assets, gaps, opportunities, and barriers to advance equitable access to nature. It's really about getting a clearer picture of what's happening in your community. We don't want to like reinvent what's happening. We don't want to kind of spend any time thinking about like, let's start this thing when there might be opportunities out there that are already started, and thinking about how you can connect with other people in the area. Um, so it's really about identifying what's working, what's missing, and of course, where are there opportunities to make a bigger impact. Really about identifying, targeting, and coordinating on strategies. To really get yourself and your team in the best space to um, build your community's ability to expand children's equitable access to nature. So there's a few key landscape areas that we really think about when we're thinking about this. So it's like stakeholders in the area, identifying champions, influencers, or key players, programs and experiences, thinking about what's available, what kind of outcomes are a part of that process, and what kind of impact they're making. And then also what policies and funding are already available, to see if that can help you scale the work that you're doing and into some of those existing systems. Who's supporting children's access to nature in your community already? We're thinking about like local leaders, nonprofits, public health agencies. What programs or experiences are already available? Who are they reaching, and what's important here is like who's being left out, right? There might be a lot of work that's already happening. Organizations are already putting in a lot of work in the community, but who is it that they're not considering, or who might be being left out? And if there are any like funding or policy opportunities that you could tap into that might already exist, or that could integrate nature access. Something that you can do is think about speaking to someone in the public sector to get a sense of kind of what's happening, right? I know a lot of this is really can be somewhat difficult because you might be starting at zero, but thinking about some of the relationships that you already have, and seeing who can like really potentially help you with some of these scans in your community. Um, and a couple things to like really not forget is there are a variety of ways to do this. Our speakers are going to be sharing their approaches, and you might see some similarities and you might see some differences there. And timelines are not going to be the same for everybody. Someone we might be able to see something get done in a few months, and hey, it may take some a little bit longer for someone else based on capacity, based on the relationships they have, based on um, just the time that they have available to do the work that they need to do to create this landscape scan. So understand that everybody is joining at a different pace and have different approaches. And it's really this landscape scan is to help your team target actions and align with the community's goals and the needs of your community. So making sure that not only are you doing this scan, but you're also including the community in this process, is that's super important. So let's talk about a few sectors that you can explore. You can move on. Yep. Um, so there are a few sectors that are listed here, and this may not be for everyone in terms of what you might need and what goals you're looking for, but these are a few options, right? There's education, there's infrastructure, there's health and wellness, out of school time, uh, food access and security, nonprofits, and community-based organizations. So it's really important to look across many sectors and a variety of sectors because there may be some overlap to opportunities that are available to connect children to nature. For example, there could be schools that you could be partnering with to support your work in creating outdoor classrooms. Parks departments that might already have nature programs like that they're already doing them. Seeing how you can connect with those community-based organizations that are valuable because we want to make sure that um, we can support the people that are historically being excluded, and those community-based organizations have ties to those folks in the community, and they can really give you insight to some of the gaps and barriers that you might not be seeing otherwise. Something that you're just, whether you're doing like a Google search or you're looking for what's happening in the community, whether you're doing a survey, anything like that, um, being connected to those community-based organizations can really give you some insight to those barriers that you might be missing. And you start thinking about your community, ask yourself who's already doing this work. I've mentioned this already, but who's already doing it and how can we collaborate on those efforts? There are so many important organizations out there that are doing tremendous work. And some of our in-person events, we have this discovery where it's like we have all these resources and we're not realizing that those things are available because we're all in different spaces or we're siloed in different areas and we're not really seeing what's available to us. Um, and now that I've shared like a little bit of a background on like what conducting a landscape scan is, what does it mean, some of questions that I've prompted, I definitely want to see um, if it's if you start to think about who you can start looking into or what areas that you might uh, be interested in starting your scan with. So I have a quick poll that I'm going to run, and I love to see what your answers are on that in terms of if you were to do a landscape scan today or in the next few weeks, what would you prioritize in exploring first? So let me share that with you. All right. So if you were to conduct a landscape scan, what would you prioritize exploring first? Is it going to be stakeholders that could lead to potential partners? Is it going to be programs and experiences and the reach that they have? Or is it going to be policies and funding opportunities? And as you guys do that, I'll look into the chat. Yeah, we can definitely send the presentation afterwards. Anyone who's registered will be receiving the recording, the slides, And we also have an actual landscape scan guide. There's a two-page guide on conducting a landscape scan. It gives you a lot of great resources. We'll be sending that as well. All right. All right. I'm seeing some results here. So let me share the results with you. We're seeing a lot of people starting off with stakeholders and potential partners, which I think it's I think it's a great start, right? Because you could have potential people that will be a part of your core team or expand that team and really be helping you in this landscape scan. Um, all right. So thank you for engaging in that and sharing your thoughts on it. I am seeing some comments on that the slides are a little bit blurry. Um, there's not really much we can do about that. I think it's just we're all dealing with a little bit of some heavy rain, so some of the quality is a little bit off. But as I mentioned, we will be sharing this after as well. All right. Um, Okay, so we can move on to having our speakers join us. Jenny will be joining us, who's the project manager for our Nature Everywhere Kingston team from Kingston, New York. And then Megan Granado is a sustainability and resilience manager for the town of Groton, Connecticut. And they're also a part of our Nature Everywhere Groton team. Thank you both for joining us. I'm just excited to have you share your approach with our audience. Jenny, could you introduce yourself first for us?
Sure. Thank you, Christian. My name is Jenny Swantz. I am, as Christian said, the project manager for Nature Everywhere Kingston, and we're in a smaller community. Kingston, New York, is in the Mid-Hudson Valley. We're a city of about 25,000. And our team is a collaboration between the City of Kingston, specifically the Parks and Rec Department, the Kingston City School District, and a few local nonprofit organizations, notably Wild Earth, the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Ulster County, and the Kingston YMCA Farm Project.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenny, for sharing that. Okay, so we also have Megan, if you can introduce yourself and let people know a little bit about what organizations show up on your team.
Sure, happy to. Hi, everyone. Megan Granado. Like Christian said, I'm the Sustainability and Resilience Manager for the town of Groton, Connecticut. We're located in southeastern Connecticut, very close to the Rhode Island border. And so our team is Go or Get Outdoors Groton. I am a member of the town of Groton's Office of Planning and Development Services. And my director is also on the team. He kind of brings in the policy expertise. Um, in addition, we have two representatives from Groton Public School System. We have a colleague, Clayton, from Groton Parks and Recreation. He is the community engagement specialist for that group. And then we also have Groton Open Space Association, which is a local, sort of close to a land trust here in Groton. And I wanted to showcase too, when we started this, when we did advertising, press releases, we included all of our logos, but a woman who's been working with us, Tamara Berry, just developed that larger logo on the right that you see, the circular one, that we're really excited about, kind of bringing all of us together and the vision that we have for our group.
I was wondering when you sent that to me, I was like, oh, that's like, did we give you that? But that's so awesome that your own team was able to design that. It looks great. I think it looks
Thanks.
awesome. All right. Um, Jenny, we've been talking about landscape scans, and I definitely want to see you share about your approaches to that. So would you be able to share your approach to completing your landscape scan in your community and maybe talk about like where did you start and how did you collect some of this information?
Sure, happy to do that. The landscape scan is really, this has been our starting point. We've really only been working on these Nature Everywhere activities for the past few months. So this is where we began. And it was really important to us to just get a sense of what entities were and what opportunities for getting into nature were available within the Kingston community for youth. So, as you said, Christian, like we knew that there's a lot of siloing, and so we wanted to get a sense of what's out there so that we could next work on connecting people and programs. So we started just on Zoom sessions and brainstorming with our core team. So we had about 5 different heads in the project, 5 different minds. And because our core team is made up of people from various different sectors within the city, so we have education, we have the municipal sector, and then we have the nonprofit sector represented, we were really able to get a very broad overview of organizations and entities that are already out there in Kingston working to support youth. So what we did is we listed organizations. We created a spreadsheet using a program called Airtable, which is a free cloud-based program. And we categorized them by the different sectors that you were referencing, and also the different types of organizations like municipal and nonprofit and grassroots. And then I took that and I worked on my own to kind of dig into each organization and understand the nature of the programs that they were offering to the community. We really wanted to see what are the opportunities that Kingston youth have to connect with nature, and where are the gaps that you were, like, as you were talking about. So if you go to the next slide, the nice thing about this Airtable program is it enabled us to use the information that we put in to create some charts and visualize the opportunities that are out there and the gaps that are out there. So like if you look at that bar chart on the bottom, that was the programs based on the ages of the youth that they served that are happening in Kingston. So we could see that there's a lot of programs happening for like elementary students and middle school students, but there's not a lot of programs out there for families. So that's helpful as we figure out like where we want to go and fill in those gaps.
Hey, Jenny, just give me 1 second. Laura, I'm gonna see if I can try to share my screen just because we're seeing some things a little bit more blurry. Would you be able to take the share? Thank you so much. I'm gonna see if this is a little bit better for folks. Just let me know in the chat. All right. If anyone in the chat could let us know if that looks any better.
It does look better to me.
Okay. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. But as I said, we'll be sending the slides after as well. But thank you so much for holding on that. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is where we've started. And at the same time, we did also complete a policy review. So we've kind of done all 3 of those things that you were talking about: the organizations, the programs, and the policies.
Okay. And then I know that you had shared your timeline here. Would you want to go into that as well?
Sure. Yeah. So this is just kind of what we're doing next. So we've completed this landscape scan. And then we've used it to create an engagement plan for reaching out to all of these different stakeholders in Kingston. So over the next 6 months, we're going to be reaching out to people from each of these organizations, and we're going to be holding a series of 3 stakeholder meetings in order to bring people together and hear from them directly how they're supporting youth in Kingston, and also identify collectively where the gaps are. And at the same time, we're going to be reaching out to youth and families in the community, both through a series of surveys and also through different events such as the Kingston Earth Fair, and working to understand how youth are engaging in nature-based activities, and what they want to do that they're not doing and why.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We also know that the good thing about having these two speakers here is that people are going to do things a little bit differently. And the important thing is that it does get done. It does involve community, and we know that both of these approaches do that. Megan will be sharing in a moment. Um, but we know that people have, again, different capacity, different relationships, different goals in their community. So Megan, I'd love to hear your approach as well to this landscape scan, and kind of where it started, and how did you get some of that information?
Yeah, I have to say, Jenny, first, I love that Airtable and sort of the gap analysis you did. That was so, I love that. We went through sort of a similar process, but in a less sophisticated way. We started with stakeholders. Our group gets together in person once a month. And then we do a lot of communication on email. So we had kind of given ourselves the homework of everyone going through and adding uh, stakeholders, also policies and programs to the workbook we were given by Children in Nature Network. And then we came together and took a look at them together, and did that sort of same gap analysis with stakeholders. We realized that we were really lacking connections with early childhood care providers. And so we were very fortunate around that same time. We were strengthening our relationship with a group in town called Children First Groton that seeks to connect families with resources that they might need. And it's, they have connections with the police department, fire department, health district, library. So the director of that program was kind enough to review our stakeholder scan for us and tell us who we were missing. And that was so valuable. And it just so happens that she had a ton of early childhood related connections that she was able to share with us. So that was a really valuable step in our process, was kind of reaching out to our network to ask that question of like, who are we missing that we don't know that we're missing? And similarly with the programs and activities for kids, Jenny, we also had a similar recognition that once we got everything down on the page, we have a lot of opportunities. Focus at the elementary school level really drops off once you get to middle school and then to high school as well. We're also having conversations more recently. A part of our group went and spoke with a local high school group of students about this topic. And the students were really speaking about the issue of having to pay to do a lot of these experiences. So, like, we have a tremendous Parks and Rec program, and they offer a ton of different programming options, and people from across the region come to our town for what our Parks and Rec does. But with most of the programs, you have to pay. And so, like, those are some of the things that we're starting to tease out as a result of our scan process as well.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Megan, I am, we also have some great photos, and I want to lead to that next, from the work that you're doing in Groton. So I'd love to know a little bit more about the kinds of youth or resident engagement activities that you're doing, to kind of understand what the community is interested in and if there were any additional barriers.
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of started small by attending other community events and seeing if we could table and really just giving out information on, like, we had a flyer of this is what Go Groton is, to help people understand the ins and outs of the programs, let them know that we were here and this was our focus. And we've kind of gotten a little bit more sophisticated as we've gone. We've picked up some steam. We're really lucky in town. It's similar, it sounds, to in Kingston, there's an Earth Day Expo. I can take no credit for it. There's a group of volunteers that do it. We have a local sustainability store, and the owner really spearheaded. It's his vision. But about 3,000 people attend that. So it's a perfect opportunity for us to show up. And that poster that I have in the bottom right just ask the question of, like, what do you think every kid in this town should get to do in terms of an outdoor experience? And the poster was really successful because it's a quick, easy interaction. It's not a very hard question, but it makes you think a little bit. But we could also pivot it for children because we had a lot of families in attendance. So we could ask kids what their favorite thing to do outside was and start to get the pulse also of, like, the connection that they have with nature, how they're spending time outdoors, and what brings them the most joy. So from there, we held our first Go Groton event in May. And it was actually, if you could go back one slide, it was focused on families. And we invited in our local nature center. They were kind enough to do a reptiles and raptors show for us. So we kind of had a hook of getting people there. We also provided free dinner. And once again, we gave the brief elevator pitch about what Go Groton is. We also had a survey this time. And what was really successful about this event was that we had some people attending because they saw the flyer, but we held it at our community center. And in the same hallway, there was a number of karate classes going. I learned that night that karate is very popular in Groton. So we had all these families where maybe you have one sibling in karate class, you have other younger siblings just waiting with mom and dad, who all piled into the room to see the nature show because it was just, a great opportunity for them to do something. And then we were able to say, hey, dinner's on us, please take the survey. So we were able to get a lot more response and involvement by really kind of doing that approach of going to where people are. You can move forward one more. And then we did hold a stakeholder event. So we emailed all the folks on our stakeholder scan. This was really kind of spurred on by the fact with the Nature Everywhere program, we have our technical assistance provider visits. So Vera and Michaela were coming to town and we wanted to take advantage of their expertise being in Groton. So we organized an event. They were gracious enough to do a great presentation. We had a Q&A, and then once again, we provided dinner for the participants, and we had an entire room full of interactive posters. So again, it was trying to hit on different topic areas. So we had one poster that explained what nature-based play spaces are, and right next to it was a poster saying, hey, let's take your temperature on nature-based play spaces. Tell us, are you hot? Are you cold? What do you think? With a big thermometer. So trying to get at, like, different aspects of getting kids outside and nature connection by having people give us feedback on, like, very kind of like specific pointed questions. And I think if you go one more slide, I have.
Yeah, I was just going to say too, I love the reference to the other COBORs too. It's giving like a visual of like what it is that you all can come up with.
Yeah, so we are doing a Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights, and so we wanted to get input again on what should be on there, and we printed out large scale some of the examples that we love and asked people for their opinion, which was a nice way to introduce COBORs to people who maybe have never seen one before, but then got them to think about, like, okay, all of the things that show up on these various COBORs, what do we think is most relevant here, which was pretty cool.
Great.
And
then
here's some
just to
example.
keep in mind, COBOR is the Children Outdoor Bill of Rights.
Mm-hmm. So there's some examples. And last thing I'll say too is similar to what Jenny said, right? We really want to make sure that we're getting input from the youth. So we hired Tamara Berry, who I mentioned before. She created that great logo for us. She is our youth leader. And now we've just brought on 3 high school interns who are going to be working with Tamara to do engagement. So a big part of that is engaging their peers. In the school system, we're also going to be hopefully getting them access into the middle school and the elementary schools to connect with students there. And then they'll also be helping us with tabling events. But, the approach that we've created so far is what we think makes sense from an adult perspective and connecting with the community. So we're really excited to have their input, help us with social media, and, hopefully kind of broaden the breadth of the engagement that we've done so far.
That's great. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing for a second, and then we can have a couple few other questions. Um, really love to know, like, this is a lot of great work happening, and I just love the fact that even you two, like, having all this great content and things that you've done, like, are learning from each other, and this is what these events are all about. So love hearing that. Um, I would just love to know a little bit about, like, were there any like challenges going through this process that you were kind of facing, whether it was like not getting return calls or whether it was maybe scheduling of a community event or anything like that that was like something that you faced and like kind of had to overcome during the process of landscape scanning? Either one could respond.
I can go. First of all, I want to say, Megan, I'm so excited to see all the hands-on aspect of what you did, because that's really what we want to be doing when we start having our events. I think for us, the biggest challenge has been just trying to figure out where to begin. And it's it's like a chicken and egg thing. So it's okay, we want to reach out to these stakeholders and start engaging them, but we don't have any like collateral and materials to send them, and we can't deliver collateral and materials because we don't have the information from the stakeholders that we want to put on the collateral and materials. um, so figuring out like what we want to say and trying to have a plan when we want the community input to make the plan that we want to have.
Yeah, I think that we also sort of like we have so many ideas and there's so many things that like click into place in a moment that I feel like we're always sort of like at risk of losing or forgetting some of those ideas. I had a conversation with someone yesterday who brought up middle school recess. And I was like, oh, that's right. That's something we talked about 3 weeks ago. I need to make sure that we don't forget that. So, continuing to just sort of like both distill down our message while at the same time explore and still like we're still gathering so much input that we're a little bit in that cross in between of trying to kind of like clarify and condense while still gain and gather at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that there's definitely a lot of pressure of like trying to remember and making sure that you're doing the right thing or making the right choices. And I think that that's why it's so beneficial to have like your team with you and like just not internally thinking about these things, but also like having those team meetings and those in-person events if you can, to just help with it. Maybe think because there's like I think we all want to do a lot. So we're like at level 100 and trying to like race towards that, but it's like it gives us room to potentially forget, like you were saying, Megan, and just knowing that your team is should be there to help you. Um, all right, so we are a little bit shorter on time, but I do want to give people some time to ask you both questions. I definitely appreciate what you've shared so far, and I'm seeing a question come up in the chat now. Um, would love to hear what middle school recess discussion was. That is hopefully a big topic for us in 2025. That's coming from Jane.
Sure. Yeah, we haven't gone too in depth on it. So in Groton, we're a population of about 38,000 residents. So we have a lot of kids in the school system at any given time. Elementary school is K through 5 here. And I say that with a thought in my head. Connecticut, everything is municipality based. We have 169 municipalities. They're all different. And the one I live in isn't the same as how Groton does it. But so once kids get to middle school for 6 through 8, they have no recess. And, one of the things that we've been talking about with our Children's Outdoor Bill of Rights is really trying to push that every kid, as part of every school day, should have access to the outdoors and not just have that be, oh, at the back of the cafeteria, there's a door you can go and stand outside on like a little dirt patch adjacent to, a recreational field, but have that actually be meaningful. And I think that, especially at the middle school level, there's a lot to potentially explore there. So it's something that we had talked about as part of our stakeholder engagement and that meeting that I show the photos of. And then I had a middle school teacher just yesterday bring it up in conversation where she was just like, gosh, it's just so hard to expect these sixth graders, excuse me, not fifth graders, sixth graders, 6 through 8 is middle school, to sit still all day. And so if there's ways that we can through Go Groton be kind of like really pushing that conversation, that is, might be something that we really want to try to take on.
I can actually share a little bit about what we've done in Kingston. One of the organizations that's on our core team, Wild Earth, is actually doing a guided recess program with the Kingston City School District middle schools. So 2 days a week, the Wild Earth staff go to the middle school and they just have a range of like 5 different optional choice-based activities for middle schoolers during their recess time. And it's everything from, they have kind of a rotating nature museum table that has anything from pine cones to animal hides to bones on it, that kids can just go over and explore. And then some of the staff will just lead a bunch of different games with the kids to just help them get their energy out at that midday hour. And they're kind of games with like ecological concepts behind them, but for the kids, they're just running around and playing tag.
That's so neat, Jenny. Oh, Christian, you're muted.
You're muted, Christian.
Happens once at least. We have another question in the chat, but keep in mind you could also, if you'd like, to get on camera, ask through audio, either way, or you can ask in the chat. We have a question from Malda that says, can you talk about your initial analysis process to figure out the gaps and opportunities?
So I can say like we started with us, it was just entering into that Airtable program software spreadsheet, the programs that each of the stakeholder organizations that we identified were offering, and we coded them based on the ages of the kids being served in the program, the time of year that the program was being offered, and whether the program was an after-school program, an in-school program, a summer camp, that type of categorization. And then so we were able to use the charts along with those categories to just kind of look and see, all right, there's 10 programs for summer camp programs for middle schoolers, but there's nothing for early elementary kids. So things like that.
I'm wondering about like how all of this was done, like with the consideration of making sure that equity was a part of the process. I don't know if you all used the equity mapping resources that were available to the communities, or just other ways. Would love to know, Megan or Jenny, if you had thoughts on that.
Yeah, so our equity mapping resources didn't actually show some of the socioeconomic disparities that we know exist in town. And I think it's because the data pulls in so much information from national data sets. And Groton is also a town that has a lot of green space. We're at almost 30% preserved open space. It's not necessarily equitably distributed through town. So that is something that we are very much addressing in our work. But for us, the issue right then isn't necessarily so much that there's not open space relatively close by, but there's other barriers as to why these kids aren't connecting with it. And I know from talking with our technical assistance experts, I think Madison, Wisconsin had a similar sort of thing. So when the high school students start to do their outreach to peers, we're really interested in them asking questions about those barriers of not just like, where do you live? And do you have this green space close to you? And do you use it? But like, also why you might not, or do you not find that space welcoming? Do you not have the equipment or, the gear to be comfortable outside, really trying to get at those more like granular reasons that there is that barrier and disconnect.
And yeah, I would echo what you're saying, Megan. I think our equity mapping is really going to come once we start getting into our community surveying. And just like you're talking about, where we're looking at asking what do kids want to be doing in nature that they're not currently doing, and why aren't they currently doing those things that they want to do? So for example, we're right on the Hudson River. Kingston has several miles of waterfront space, so there's lots of opportunities for swimming and kayaking. But it may be like kids want to kayak, but kayaking's expensive. It's a lot of equipment. And so how can we have a program available for gear rental that is both accessible and affordable?
Yeah, we're also similarly mulling around ideas of gear rentals or like a gear shed's not the right word, but someplace that people could go
we're
and
talking about a gear library.
locker library. We're a military community, and so we have a lot of families that are in Groton for a short period of time, and then they get reassigned to other bases. And so we're hoping that maybe that's somewhere we can tap in, where it's like, well, rather than throwing away your gear or just putting it on the curb when you move, donate it to us. We'll make sure it gets put to good use.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. We'd like to move on and talk a little bit about recognition and celebration for anyone who's interested in doing landscape scans in their communities. If you have other questions, put them in the chat. If we can't answer them while we're here, we can definitely follow up with you on that. But I'll be talking a little bit more about the action challenge. But thank you, Megan and Jenny, for all the great sharing of your story and your approach on landscape scans. And if there's anything that we can provide in terms of like links to their communities, we'll definitely provide that also to to you all after when we send the recording of this session as well. Let me share my screen. All right. Okay, so what is the Action Challenge? The Action Challenge is a self-paced approach to advancing equitable access to nature everywhere children live, learn, and play in your community. We talked about conducting this landscape scan, and a part of the Action Challenge is doing just that. We have a great guide that talks about how to do this, and other incredible resources. You just have to join us on this initiative. So the Action Challenge celebrates and recognizes community's progress in increasing nature connection for all children, especially children of color or those experiencing poverty or other groups who have historically been excluded from nature-based experiences. So, how do you join the Action Challenge? You just have to form a three-person cross-sector community leadership team. We know it's important to join with other organizations that just help you understand what's out there. And again, we talked about barriers a lot today, but like joining a team that has different input, different opinions, different community connections and relationships is very important. When we talk about cross-sector team, we're thinking about um, community organizations, city departments, schools, other partners committing to connecting children to nature. You have to commit to advancing your community's self-directed action challenge. And what that looks like is there are actions that we have on our website that tell you kind of like what is it that we think would help you best, just from our experience of working with communities prior, and just being committed to working on that in your community. Actions are ideally completed within 12 months, but participation definitely can continue beyond a year. And like I said, conducting a landscape scan is one of those options. So if you're thinking about doing that or have done one of these things recently, let us know about that. Join us on the Action Challenge, and we can recognize and celebrate you. Okay. So, what are the benefits? Why should I be a part of this experience? Why should I register? Um, you know, you get to work at your own pace. I know people have different capacities, different schedules, different responsibilities with family and their jobs. You get to do this at your own pace, um, and be a part of the process as much or as little as you have the time to. You also are able to receive that recognition that I was mentioning. There's options to be put on our website on our Nature Everywhere Communities map. You can also be supported in drafting a press release, supporting in designing a street sign or a banner if you were to implement some nature uh, pieces in your community, and we can support you in doing some of that. And there's also other recognition like being on one of our newsletters, National League of City newsletter or news feature. And you get access to tools and resources. There are many tools and resources already available, but there are a couple things that are kind of hidden behind registering for the Nature Everywhere Communities initiative for the Action Challenge. And then you get to join the National Peer Learning Network, be a part of some of these calls with speakers like Jenny and Megan. We have monthly lunch and learn calls that people can join. It's nice. It's like a nice little cozy group conversation where people share resources, talk about what they're going through, and we help each other out. And that happens monthly. And then every 2 months, we also have these calls that are focused on the Action Challenge and how we can support the actions that you might be doing in your communities. And we also have a platform that you can join that's called the Trailhead, and you can connect to other members in the community, other organizations, find other resources, post job postings, things like that. That is something that you get once you join the Action Challenge and register. All right. And then we talked a little bit about equity mapping, and as Megan was sharing, it's like some of this is helpful, some of it might just be things you have to look further into. But receiving this equity mapping is a thing that you would get when you register for the Action Challenge. Thinking about where is the nature in your community, where are the children, and kind of like what ages they're in the spaces, and kind of where is the general need the greatest when you think about like your traditional like equity when it comes to potentially income, how many parks are in the area, and things like that. That is something that is available to you once you register for the Action Challenge. And registering is as simple as building that team of 3 at a minimum, letting us know who's on that team, and then maybe what's your interest in joining the Action Challenge, and you hit register. I get that. I wish I could automate it and give this all to you automatically when you register, but I can't. I do have to physically see it. And then I send you a lengthy welcome email with all the great resources that are available to you. And then I'm kind of like your support team to help you through this process, to be in any meetings and support you through the process as well with the Action Challenge. What else? So available resources. We have resources that are guiding our team to addressing systemic barriers to accessing nature. So on the Action Challenge website for us, you can register. You can look at what our actions are. For example, a few other ones are, building a community vision through meeting with your stakeholders or with youth in your community. There's also implementing a nature play piece in your community as well. There's conducting a landscape scan. There's youth engagement opportunity for like summer jobs, things like that. Those are all the actions that we have on our website. But our website has all of that. The actions, how to register, where are the resources, building a cross-sector team, landscape scans, which you'll get after this call, community engagement guide, advancing equity in children, connection to nature, more guides, toolkits, case studies, community examples. There's a lot of content on there. We'd love you to check that out. And let's see. So what's next? If you have a cross-sector team, all you have to do is go to our website that's linked in the chat, and you'll also get this when you get the recording. And just take a look if you hit that requirement of 3 different organizations or departments that might want to join and learn more. And then you could just register. You'll also receive those resources, access to our peer learning network, and start to receive recognition once you've reported that you've done some of those actions. And the best part is if you're not sure where you are, you're not sure if your team is eligible, I am always available to meet with you and your team one-on-one if you have any questions. I would much rather you send me an email and I let you know, hey, we think this works, but you need to make a slight adjustment. I would rather you do that than think that you're not available to apply or not included. Please send me an email. We can talk about this further through email or even a one-on-one meeting. There is not a deadline. As of right now, we have some goals for 2025 that we'd love for our communities to join us within this next coming year. That is a big goal for us for Nature Everywhere. But there is not a deadline. The registration is open. It's been open for a few months now. You can register as soon as you have your team available. And we'd love to welcome you, Gloria or anyone else that's on the chat. All right. And just before we wrap up, if you can let us know how this event went for you. This is a quick 4-question survey. You could either scan this QR code on your phone, or we will be linking the survey in the chat as well. Just let us know how the event went. Did this support you in learning about landscape scans in your community? Would you like me to reach out to you directly to talk about the Action Challenge? And just let us know how we could do better. If there's something that you really enjoyed, if you really enjoyed hearing our speakers, if you really enjoyed me hosting this, anything is helpful in the comments, and just letting us know how we did and maybe how we can support you in the future. If you have any ideas for other sessions or events, you could share that as well in the survey. I do want to thank Jenny and Megan again for joining us. I love, like, we're all across the country, and many times I hear about the stories of what you're all doing through email. And I just love seeing the photos and seeing your faces and the smiles and all the things that you're going through. And it's always exciting to have our communities joining us for these sessions. So thank you again. for joining. And of course, thanks everyone else for participating in the poll, in the chat, and potentially the interesting in applying to the action challenge. We have another 2 minutes here. I will sit in this chat here, but this is it. This is the end of the call. I do have a couple questions that came in the chat, and I will respond before I close this. But I thank you all for being here. We just appreciate every minute that you allow us to be in your space and welcome us into it. Thank you.